Hello, Dr. Bechtel here. Today we're covering the how to compile a family history. To label this a little bit more appropriately, in my opinion, the chapter of the book we're covering is called Compiling a Family History, but I prefer to call it an initial consultation. So if I do that and if they kind of drag this family history thing in a little bit more than I would have if I wrote the book. Anyway, so moving on. We're going to cover, our agenda here for this lecture is get an introduction on what's going on. What does the client want? That's an important question we're going to cover today. Interviewing guidelines, family history checklist, and software. The interviewing and I'm going to get to the interviewing guidelines, and then I'm going to start another second presentation on the interviewing process, a little more on the interviewing process and communication, and then the history checklist. Little tiny one slide comes up on software. Anyway, I'm breaking this up into 2 or 3 parts. Okay, now getting started, we have a new client, or a client interested in being retained. I want to set a little stage here because the way this is presented is really focused on the paralegal's role, but we're going to talk also about some things that are just generally speaking, because an attorney would be handling so much of this as well in the initial consultation to protect, unauthorized practice of law claims and that sort of thing. But just keep in mind the focus is the initial client interview, and that we're in a process of the intake where we're compiling information about the history of the client and the client's family, because as we've already discussed in other lectures, the family law situation is unique. So we're not just finding out about a transaction, we're finding out about a family. This is where that comment I made earlier about who's in the room right now. This is written specifically for paralegals, but we need to keep in mind what is going on a larger level in terms of mostly what the attorney is thinking about. But of course, your paralegal prowess will also be thinking about this stuff too as a backup. But most often what we're doing at this stage is we're figuring out whether there's going to be a contested, otherwise known as disputed, legal issue or issues in this case, and will it raise any complex factual issues? Will it involve large sums of money and other property, which generally means all of the above. There's a dispute, it's complex, and also generally means are we going to see any suspected asset hiding on the part of either party? And you need to ask that client, the client this too. So this is something that we look into in the initial consultation. At the end of the day, what we really need to get to is, what does the client want? Keep in mind, client is in a stressful situation. Their mind is racing. It's all sorts of thoughts. Tens of thousands of thoughts going through their head, often prompted by fear, vulnerability, the unknown, not understanding the law, or misunderstanding the law. All of these things are going through the client's head. So at the end of the day, what exactly is the best case scenario that they are looking for? Keep that in mind, that what does the client want? The client may not know, and may need, and probably won't know until the client leaves the room, or is ready to leave the room. You'll need to just keep that in mind and keep the emotional stance of the client in mind too. There are 3 main goals of an initial client interview. First goal, get that information we're looking for, and it needs to be legally relevant. So we're being careful what we choose to ask for. It needs to be complete, and it needs to be reliable. Oftentimes there's a list that we already know we need, and we'll look at that in this lecture. Importantly, you need to establish a relationship of trust with the client so the client feels comfortable conveying the information you need. This is covered in the communications section part of this lecture, so I won't go into deeply with it now. And then the important question is, what does the client want? Getting ready for an interview is about scheduling a convenient time, obviously, and reserving sufficient time, so convenient and sufficient time for everyone to have the conversation. Generally, a dissolution of marriage client will come in for about an hour. If there is a lot of property, a lot of dispute anticipated, it's already been identified by the attorney in a telephone conversation with someone, sounds complex, they might schedule out an hour and a half, maybe longer. It depends on what the typical way of doing is in the firm. But you don't want to be hurried. That will set the client up for vulnerability, and they'll feel like, should I be sharing what I'm sharing? It's just super important. Reserve a good location. Make sure that if you know of a disability the client has, I'm referring to a physical disability, maybe they're in a wheelchair, maybe a walker, maybe any kind of disability can dictate what is an appropriate location. Not only disability related, but is it a comfortable space? So this stuff gets tucked into the next few slides anyway, so I won't belabor the point. Tell the client what documents to bring in advance, and confirm the time with the client when you make the appointment. Importantly, write a letter to the client. Let them know, thank you, we're looking forward to seeing you at thus and so time on thus and so date, and the location. Maybe a map should be included with that letter. Reserve and tell them where it's located. Tell them in this letter what to bring with them, and what will be discussed. We're doing an initial consultation to gather information from you so that attorney so-and-so can represent you. What else? Have supplies, paper, pens, tissue, water, fee agreement, packet, that sort of thing available in that room at the time of the interview. As a professional, you need to be prompt and friendly. Begin these types of conversations with small talk. Everyone does it. We do it first day of class sometimes. Hey, nice day. You got a busy day planned? What's your schedule like? Whatever. Just to bring them. I worked for an attorney for years, and he always said this it didn't matter what time of day it was. He'd come and greet the client in the lobby. It was always tucking in his shirt as he came, and he always was tucking in his shirt, and hi, how are you doing? Busy day? They keep me hidden back here. And he'd go down this long hallway with the client to have an interview. Explain the attorney-client privilege. Be careful that you're not explaining it in a complicated way. You simply tell the client, we will not be disclosing this information that you share today with anyone that isn't in the need-to-know circle. And those are the people in the law firm or any experts that are retained in the process of the case. Tell them that because of this confidentiality, there's also an attorney-client privilege that avoids exposure of the information they're giving and divulging in the interview, any exposure to the court system in terms of having to testify against their own client. Let them know that they're protected. Let them know they're protected. This helps to open their mouth and get the information you need. Establish a relationship of confidence and trust. Set aside the time, as I've mentioned already. Dress conservatively and professionally. The definition of conservative and professional is often disclosed by the environment you're in and what people are wearing there. You should ask your boss, your supervising attorney, how do they want you to dress for interview days when you know there are interviews? Is it different from the days when you're just at your desk working? Find out. But as a general rule, women slacks or skirt, blouse that's not low cut. The less jewelry, the better. No fragrances. People can be deathly allergic to some fragrances. Can also be triggered by some fragrances, emotionally triggered by fragrances. So no, three is fine or something like that is a term. One pair of earrings, one ring, and one bracelet, and one necklace, or something like that. One is good. What else? Some firms want you to have a jacket, or something like a jacket. You need to ask. For men, typically, in the not so high caliber, the big firms will have you dress more professionally than the smaller ones. Some might even be business casual, depending on the client you serve. Just ask. The location, as we've already pointed out, needs to be comfortable. As noted here, make sure the client is comfortable. But at that location, make sure that you cleared away your open files, your papers of other clients are not sitting out on your desk or table. The monitor doesn't have any information disclosed on it about anything. Maybe your picture of your dog is on that, and they can see that. Okay, that's fine. And the only papers and information that should be out in front of you is the information about this client. Give the client your business card and tell them again and again and again that you're not an attorney. Prepare the client for what will happen during the interview. Explain the agenda to get started. After the small talk, you can say, well, what we're going to do today is gather information about your case. You're going to talk to attorney so-and-so, and I'll be here as the paralegal because I'm here to assist the attorney. And then we're going to meet up separately after the attorneys decided to take your case. And we'll talk about I'll be gathering more information, and then we'll work on a fee engagement letter if that's applicable. Relax. This is what we'll do. We're going to ask questions. Prepare for maintain eye contact. I'll go into this in the communications section, but you're going to be taking notes, but don't just put your head down and take the notes. Even if you're supporting the attorney, you need to maintain some eye contact with the client. Use great sensitivity in obtaining facts from the client. Remember what I said earlier, they're feeling vulnerable, they're nervous, they are scared and fearful. Don't let that be, don't help them to feel like you're being sensitive, but not overly empathetic. We're going to go into that in a little bit. Not in this lecture, but at some point. Let the client tell their story without interruption. Please don't interrupt clients. Don't interrupt anybody. It's rude. Then get the details. So get the big story and then the details. We'll cover that in the communication section part of this lecture series. Listen attentively. We'll cover that too. Encourage the client to do most of the talking, again, without interruption, and let them express their feelings if it might be helpful in obtaining underlying facts. Interpret the client's body language. Are they sitting up straight? Do they act nervously in their body? Are they hunched over and looking hopeless? And hang on. My apologies for the telephone sound. I was talking about interpreting the client's body language. Look to see how they're feeling through the body tells the story. The body tells the story, folks. Your body tells the story of you, and the client's body is telling the story of them. And people see that, and you need to be able to recognize what you're seeing in the body language of the client. Take notes, of course, in the language of the client. What I mean there is don't insert your biased opinions into your notes. Your notes of factual information need to be straight from what the client is, how the client is saying it, not from your own opinion of what the client is saying. You're memorializing something for the first time, and trust me, you will forget it. That's why it's so important to take notes, diligently take notes, and to take those notes of factual information in what the client is saying, not what you're thinking the client is saying. Avoid extensive paraphrasing. So one of the ways you would confirm that the client is, that we're understanding to the client, we're confirming to the client that we're understanding, is through paraphrasing. Oh, what I'm hearing is ... and you finish the sentence. And that's fine, and you should do that. We'll talk more about it in the communication section. But don't do it extensively, especially at the first point of the interview, which we'll talk about in communications also, where you ask the open-ended question. Don't talk down or criticize the client, and don't disparage. In your own act, deed, and words, don't disparage anything you hear. There is nothing negative. There's nothing to criticize. It is about listening and being objective without any bias. It's so important to do that. And of course, don't give legal advice. Avoid telling the clients about their chances of success, and let them know how to reach you if they think that there's other relevant information. You may have a client portal you'll explain how to use, on the internet where they go into an app. You may prefer email. You may have an encryption that you want them to use for all email. Whatever that is, you can explain to them how to reach you, how to send you information. And then make mental notes of the client's personality. Do they seem to be a stressed out type of person? Do they tend to be talk a lot about their lack in life? Or do they talk about positively about what's going well? What is their overall personality and behavior around that? And then follow up with a client intake memo that goes to the attorney, of course, and then a copy to the file, whether that be electronic or paper. Depends on where you work, although it's mostly electronic these days. Alrighty then, we have our references for this segment of this, 2 or 3 part series. It depends on how long the next one takes to know if it's going to be 3. So I'm not making any promises, but these are the resources. This Career and Eimerman book is one we used for years in the paralegal program for the intro to legal systems. And that it's a helpful book because it has a lot of stuff, but I use most of the interviewing, so a lot of the interviewing stuff from that book. And then, of course, this is the book we're using for this term, Statsky Family Law. So thank you. The next slide, this is where we're going next. We're going to do communication skills.